Hey guys, Audra here with Flawless Crested Geckos, and this is your ultimate beginner's overview of Crested Gecko care and tips and some fun facts along the way about these awesome little animals. Hope you enjoy it. Let's dive right in. So, what are crested geckos? Crested geckos are, well, the scientific name for them is Coralophus sialatus. Say that 10 times fast. I don't even know if I said it right. But anyway, these guys are originally from New Caledonia, which is located right outside of Australia. Now, they are actually from the southernmost tip of New Caledonia. So obviously their ecosystem is tropical. They're from the rainforest. They are arboreal creatures for the most part. They do like to burrow as well, but in the wild they tend to spend their time in the canopies and jumping from limb to limb and tree to tree. They use their little tails here to hang on to things. They're semi-prehensile, if you can kind of see. If she were to jump and say she would have missed something, she might hold on with her tail. See what she's doing there? So she's kind of using her tail to hold on. So they jump from their tree to tree in the rainforest and climb up high and then dig down low into the forest for their food. They're omnivores. So they like to eat different fruits and little plants and things like that, but they also like to eat bugs, insects of different kinds. So that's where they get their protein, their calcium, their fat contents and things like that. So that is sort of an overview of where the crested geckos came from. Now, they were actually thought to be extinct for a long time after they were first discovered, but they were rediscovered in 1994. And from then on out, the U.S. had a trade agreement with the New Caledonia, and we actually exported and imported them into the U.S. And that's where we have all of our captive bred crested geckos in the U.S. from today. You can no longer get these guys from New Caledonia as the trade agreements with the U.S. are no longer in effect, so you can't export out of New Caledonia anymore, the wild caughts. But that's really important that we should establish that lockdown, because they are categorized as near threatened. So, which is crazy, because now, as far as captive bred crested geckos, they're so prolific just because they make such good pets. So as you can see, they make such good pets because they are so docile. This little girl, she's been with us quite some time, and her name is Rockstar. But she is just as calm as the day is long. She's just hanging out. She doesn't feel threatened or anything like that. But they have such docile temperaments for the most part. Now, I have seen a few out there that can get a little feisty, but for the most part, once they age a little bit and they get used to things and they get used to you and you've eased them into handling, they usually calm right down. There's so many different kinds of crested geckos. I mean, some like here or like here. You've got different colors and different combinations. You've got different genetics that you can play with. It's almost like you have a live Pokemon collection. People love to collect these little guys because they are so easy to take care of and they are so docile in nature for the most part. So let's really quickly go through setting up a crested gecko terrarium or habitat. There are so many different ways to set up a crested gecko habitat. Depending on your preference is how yours might look. There are a few things that you want to make sure your crested gecko actually has. Number one, you want to have some form of substrate. Regardless of whether if you choose to go the non-bioactive route, you use maybe paper towels or craft paper. Craft paper is something that we utilize. We love craft paper. It helps us maintain a very clean environment for all of our cresties, and it helps us in breeding and finding our eggs when it's time to go searching for eggs. So we keep that type of substrate. Now, you also have bioactives or semi-bioactives, where people like to actually build in drainage layers into a terrarium. So they put a drainage layer and then they start putting the substrate on top of that. Some people like to use eco earth. That is our actual choice for our substrate layers for the semi-bioactive enclosures that we do have. If you're interested in how we set up our enclosures across the board, check out this video right here that I did last week. This will give you a full rundown of different setups of enclosures, in particular tub enclosures. So some of your bioactive enclosures, and when I say bioactive enclosures, that just means that you're recreating an actual wild sort of habitat. And that's, you know, a lot of people will put down their substrate, they'll put isopods, springtails in there to utilize as a cleanup crew. They like to utilize leaf litter. They like to utilize real plants, and there of course are some plants that you would, you know, want to steer clear of. You always want to check and, you know, see what plants actually are appropriate and healthy for your animal, for your specific animal, in this case crested geckos. But there are definitely some awesome plants that you can set up in bioactive enclosures. And a couple of the Instagram users that I like to point out that kind of jump out to me as awesome proponents of bioactives that do a really good job is Cowajunga Aubrey Hood. She is well known for her beautiful bioactive setups. And then I noticed just scrolling through my feed that Dakota Blue Exotics, he also has just recently posted a video of a really gorgeous bioactive, and so just give them props for their beautiful bioactive displays. If you want to go visit them, there's their Instagram handles and you can look through some of their things. So like I said, if you want to set up tub enclosures and things like that, check our video out that I mentioned earlier. If you're more into bioactives, those two Instagrammer users, those two reptile enthusiasts, they are awesome in the world of bioactive, but there are so many resources out there for you guys to go and research. I can think of a ton of them, you know, just here on YouTube and Instagram, any of your platforms that you follow, your favorite reptile enthusiasts. I'm sure they can point you in the right direction if you don't get what you need from those couple of Instagram users. But that being said, let's discuss temperature and humidity. So temperature and humidity inside your enclosure is going to be, for us, we live in the south of the country. So we live in the southeast. And here our weather, you know, we do have pretty much all 4 seasons, but for the most part we can keep it relatively constant for our crested geckos around here, which is really nice, and our humidity is about near perfect for them, especially during the spring and fall times of our year. But crested geckos like anywhere from around 72-ish all the way up to about 77, 78. We don't like to get them over 80. The one really big thing that you need to consider as it pertains to cresties temperatures is that it's okay for them to be at a little bit of a higher temperature, but don't ever spike their temperature. So try to maintain an average temperature either way. So like I said, you can really overheat them really quickly, especially if you spike temperatures up to 80 or above. So they are so easy to take care of as long as you keep them cool. They do a lot better with cooler temperatures than they do with those hot temps. So here in the south, when we get it, you know, when it gets on up there where it's sort of dangerously hot for them, our power bill kind of goes up a little bit or a lot. But anyway, that's the most important thing to remember, is that temperature can really affect them. So their humidity, we keep around 60 to 65% humidity for them on a regular basis, and that helps them with their shedding, and it just keeps it moist but not too wet interior in their enclosures. So you also don't want to get it too wet, because you can actually give them some issues there too, like such as respiratory infections or things like that. So you kind of want to keep it, like I said, around the 60 to 65% humidity range, and your temps should, you know, range anywhere from 70 to 77. So that would be a good place to kind of shoot for. So what do you feed crested geckos? So there are a lot of things that you can feed crested geckos, but some of the main things that we feed is Crested Gecko diet. And we also feed calcium dusted crickets. There are a lot of other, insect choices out there, such as dubia roaches, red runners, mealworms. They can eat mealworms. There's, just some different things that you can really utilize for their, all their essentials for their protein, their fat, their minerals, all their different, needs as far as calcium and vitamin D3. Those are the things that are all wrapped up into Crested Gecko diet and, our calcium dusted crickets that we do feed. They eat anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week, and they're just super easy. The Crested Gecko diet is a powder, a fruit powder that is mixed with a little bit of water, about a consistency, a paste of ketchup. Like if you were gonna squirt a ketchup bottle out, that's about the consistency that you wanna mix up your Crested Gecko diet to. And there are multiple different kinds of Crested Gecko diets. We at Flawless have utilized Pangea, we've utilized Repashy, we've utilized BP Zoological. There's just been so many things that we have utilized. We have not yet utilized Lagarde or Sweet Reptiles, but we do plan on using them both at some point in time. So there are just so many different options out there as far as food that you can feed your Crested Geckos, and on the plus side, it's not very expensive for the most part. If you keep, anywhere from 5 to 10 Cresties in your home a year, it's really inexpensive as far as food goes. So that's a really big pro of keeping Crested Geckos. So as you saw in the beginning of the video, handling Crested Geckos is really pretty easy. Now, I will say that the older the gecko is and the more used to human interaction that they are, obviously they're going to be calmer. So anytime you have a Crested Gecko, and especially one that is not used to you or is maybe younger, they're gonna be a little bit more jumpy, right? They're gonna jump from place to place, and their thought process with their little bitty brains is that they're afraid of you because they are prey animals and you are very big and they think that you are going to eat them. So the best thing to do when you're trying to get your Crested Gecko to be what we call tame is to work with them slowly. Get them used to you. Once you get your Crested Gecko, put them in their enclosure and let them get comfortable. Don't hover over them, that stresses them out. And leave them in there except for feeding and watering them for at least the first 2 weeks. And then slowly start to take them out and handle them. If they get a little crazy, just hold them up high. Almost immediately that will stop their craziness, their fear, because when they're up high, they don't feel as threatened by you looking down on them. So let's show you an example of this. So I have a girl here, her name is Checkmate. And whereas Rockstar is pretty fine to just kind of hang out, this girl, she likes to move a little bit more. She, of course, you can see her, she's looking around to try to see what's going on here. But if you want to look at her up close, she's really pretty. Take a look at the camera. Oh man, she's just so beautiful. But if you see, she's liking to move around, right? But if I hold her up above me, now she's pretty comfortable. She's just gonna hang there because she doesn't feel threatened by me anymore, right? That's why a lot of Crested Geckos, when they get on a person, they like to climb to the top of your head. So as you can see, that's how you just get them to just chill and stop moving about. Just pop them right up in the air.
You're chilling when the rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight.
So, health and wellness wise, how do you know when your crested gecko doesn't feel so good? 99.9% of the time, a crested gecko is going to be just fine. They don't have a whole lot of health issues so long as they get the right nutrition, the right supplements, the right things like that to keep them, hydrated and in the right temperature, the right humidity, and the right environment. So that's what we in the reptile industry call husbandry. So as long as you have the correct husbandry, you have the correct nutrition plans for your crested gecko, 9 times out of 10, they're just fine. They're very resilient and they're very hardy creatures, which is what makes them such good animals for beginners in the reptile world. So if you've never had a reptile before, they're really, really one of the best options out there to start with. But some common health issues that crested geckos tend to have is typically it's going to be more of like skin shedding problems. Sometimes our humidity gets off a little bit and you may have a crested gecko that has a little problem with their skin coming all the way off, might get caught up on their toes or on the tips of their tails. And that's when you just kind of, utilize your tools for knowing exactly what your humidity is and up your humidity, and sometimes you just need to help them a little bit. A lot of times they'll get food stuck. They may walk through and like to become an artist on the side of their terrarium, but sometimes that food, instead of wiping all off on their paper or their paper towel or in their substrate, it will dry on their little toesies and get crusty, and then they'll have problems with their toes sticking together and they may end up losing a digit like that. So that's one thing to look out for as far as their health and wellness is concerned. Another thing, like I said, as long as they're getting proper nutrition, you shouldn't have issues with what we call in the reptile industry, or period. They shouldn't have issues with deficiencies of any kind. But if they do have deficiencies, a lot of times it's in the form of calcium deficiencies. When that happens, you will see that manifest itself a lot of times with metabolic bone disease, which is, it's a terrible problem for crested geckos when they do have it. It really, you'll see their little backs will crinkle, their bones actually don't form well, don't form right. You'll just start to see some different things that aren't structurally right with the crested gecko, and that just means they're just not getting what they need. So it's very important, like I said, to make sure that your crested gecko diet and your husbandry is on point all the time for them. Fun facts and myths about crested geckos. So one of the fun facts that I've always found really interesting about crested geckos is that they're also referred to as eyelash cresties. Now, eyelash cresties and eyelash geckos and crested geckos is a synonymous term, and that term comes from their little crests that line their head, and it also lines their little eyes. So you'll notice that when you look at a crested gecko really closely, they have crests on top of their eyes and it looks like eyelashes. Some of the most beautiful eyelashes. There's a lot of women that pay for those eyelashes. But that's a fun fact about crested geckos. Another really fun fact about crested geckos is their ability to just jump as far as they pretty much want to. They absolutely, a lot of people don't know that crested geckos jump, but that is one of their biggest things is they hop, and they like to hop from branch to branch. In the wild, they would hop from different areas of the canopy in the rainforest. So they really utilize that as a tactic to get away from predators, but also to reach their destinations really easily and quickly. A lot of times people don't understand that crested geckos are actually really fast. So if you've ever experienced one getting down on the floor in your house and then hitting the road, you'll know that they are quite hard to catch once they get moving and grooving and they're gone because they're so little and so agile. But that's a fun fact about crested geckos is that they are so fast. So for those of you guys who have had a crested gecko before, I'd love to know some of your experiences with your cresties. What's your favorite morphs? What's your favorite colors? What really drives you to want to be interested in the crested gecko? Tell us down in the comments. Like and subscribe to the video. We would really appreciate your support. We hope that this video helped you out and gave you a little, tidbits of information about the general care and nutrition of crested geckos and some fun tips about them. So that's it. That's all I have for you. We'll see you next time. Flawless is out.